Hello, welcome to Eternal Beta. I'm Scott Rowe.
And I'm Scott Bishop.
This week we're going to talk about Snapchat. We've had some clients and some prospective clients ask us a bit about how Snapchat can theoretically be used for marketing purposes. And what I think is really interesting is a lot of people don't really understand what Snapchat is, because it is a rather new social network and it's being used by a much younger demographic that a lot of people don't use, especially people our age.
Like me, because I'm old.
Exactly. So at its core, Snapchat is a very, very simple service. What it basically allows you to do is send photograph messages or video messages to the friends you're connected with on Snapchat. What's interesting about that is that they actually expire after a period of time. You can either select from between 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and that piece of content actually completely expires. So if I were to send Scott a Snapchat and he were to hold his finger down and watch that within the Snapchat application, after that period of time ended, it would be gone. And you could never see it again, which is one of the more interesting things about it.
Yep.
And actually, that's probably the main reason you see a much younger demographic, millennials, using the social network as much as they do. It's dramatically different, just fundamentally, than that of traditional social networks such as LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook and those types of things. Because in those, you're basically wanting to provide content to everyone, where Snapchat, for the most part, is more of a one-to-one connection with someone.
Yep. Yeah. There's no history of use, which I think probably after all of the horror stories that you constantly see of this person got fired for posting this,
right,
or this person had to apologize or lost money or their sponsors pulled out because they posted the wrong thing online. I think it really secured a large kind of hole in the market and opportunity, because it goes away. You can just send somebody a goofy photo or just something that you're doing, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't take much thought. They can get a sense of what you're doing in real time, and then it goes away. There's no you don't have a history or have to worry about what you did in high school and where it's posted online that can somehow affect your job prospects down the road.
And I think people are finally coming to that realization. I think early on in social networking, people didn't really think about it as much. Even though parents may tell a child or a professor may tell someone that they shouldn't be posting certain types of content, they did anyways. And now they're really dealing with the ramifications of that when looking for jobs and things like that. So that's one of the great things about Snapchat from a user perspective, is there is no permanent record of your overall activity. So they generally feel free to post just about anything directly to another person without a real fear of permanent repercussion of that.
Yep.
And the other thing that I think is really important to note is when a social network becomes mature, it has a much larger user base. So when it comes to Facebook, not only are the young millennials there and the Gen Xers and all of that, but then also, you have their parents there and their grandparents. So I think at some point they don't want to produce anymore. They don't want to actually contribute anything, because then they're communicating with their grandparents and their parents and not directly with their friends any longer.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes the whole point of a social network is that it's supposed to be social, generally amongst your friends. I mean, once you get older and you have kids and things like that, you can post that type of photos. But if you're young, you want to have conversations with your peers.
Right.
And if your grandma and your dad are constantly, liking your posts or, looking over your shoulder, it just makes it much less appealing, and for lack of a better word, less cool in their eyes. So
I've even experienced that.
Oh yeah.
I've even had professional thing put maybe a Facebook post about me being in an article, right, in a newspaper, and then I get like my mother or somebody saying, "Hey, we're so proud of you, congratulations!" Like, whoa, no, wait a second.
Yeah.
It just feels very awkward. It's it's that fusion of personal and professional that sometimes is a little strange.
Yep.
Facebook saw this coming, and they actually created their own application called Poke, and it was around for a couple of years. The big issue with Poke, the functionality of it overall was very similar to that of Snapchat, but there were some drawbacks from a user perspective. One, you're required to use your Facebook username. Two, you have to stick by the same overall terms and conditions as every other Facebook application, and as we all know, those continuously change from day to day. You never really know what they're going to modify them to.
Pretty intrusive too.
They are, absolutely. And the third being, like most things with Facebook, you can only connect with your friends that are on the Facebook platform.
Right.
At least with Snapchat, I mean, you can connect with people on Facebook, but through any other means as well, you can directly connect with them and be part of this new platform.
Yep.
So they won't necessarily follow you. Your parents won't necessarily follow you to this new platform.
Right.
What's also interesting is in late in 2013, since Poke really wasn't all that incredibly popular, and Snapchat has been an amazing success since it launched in July of 2011, initially launched in July of 2011, they actually offered Snapchat $3 billion in cash.
With a B?
A billion.
Well, I mean, it's not that unusual for Facebook to try to replicate what somebody else is doing, and if you can't beat them, join them, and if you can't join them, buy them, which is what they tried to do. And it certainly makes sense from Facebook's point of view because they have two main problems right now as far as their business model is concerned. One of them's mobile, and the other one's just the youth demographic, and sometimes those overlap. But Snapchat kind of solves both. That's one of the reasons why Facebook bought Instagram, was to have a better mobile network and to have a much bigger demographic for the youth. And that's obviously why they spent a bunch of money trying to acquire Snapchat. $3 billion, and I don't know how many.
Cash, not stock, not equity, cash.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know Snapchat's. They don't have that many employees. I know there's 3 founders. I think they have a handful of engineers and developers, and I don't really think there's a whole lot of other folks other than that. So to turn down $3 billion, it would have gotten divided up pretty well.
Yeah.
Takes some. It's a family show, so it takes some guts.
I at least have respect for them. I mean, they obviously have a vision for the organization, a vision for the company, and that is obviously more important than just money. So I have a lot of respect for them, at least.
Yeah, it's not easy to turn down when you're in your mid-20s, or any age, to be able to turn down enough money where you never have to do anything again.
Right. Yeah. You could start 10 other Snapchats.
Right.
So obviously, part of the reason we want to talk about this is because of how it could potentially be leveraged in marketing. Now, it's in its real infancy when it comes to marketers leveraging it, but there are a few somewhat interesting, studies or a couple of interesting campaigns that have been done recently.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a platform or a network that has a large audience, obviously brands or advertisers are going to want to flock to that. I mean, their job is to try to get in front of eyeballs, and if that's where they are, then that's what they're going to try to do. It's definitely still in its infancy. Unlike most of the other social networks or platforms, there's usually some sort of brand version. Facebook has its pages, and you can have verified and sponsored accounts on Twitter for brands. There is nothing like that on Snapchat. It's not designed or built for brands. They might eventually go to something like that, but McDonald's and Taco Bell are the same as you and I and anyone else on there. So it's interesting to see how brands are trying to use it, and obviously to spend a ton of money on content that's going to disappear after 10 seconds or at most 24 hours probably seems a little bit alarming to creative directors or to creative teams just because it goes away. So it's been
Not to mention it has to be created on the device.
That's right. Yeah, you can't upload previous created content. So everything has to be filmed directly from your phone and then uploaded immediately. So it'll be interesting to see what is considered successful. I mean, you can base it on how many people view it, or maybe, if you have a picture of a coupon code and somebody brings it in and redeems it, but there's no kind of back-end analytics to determine.
No, the best you can get is knowing the number of people that have actually viewed it.
Yeah.
So if it's a direct message, you'll be able to know whether or not that person read it. If it's a story, as they've created, so you can actually create a series of images and videos, which is what McDonald's did with LeBron James. It was an actual story that they produced over a day to allow people to actually experience this whole story, but in these little bite-sized pieces of content. But that's really the only metric you have, is how many people actually viewed the story. There is no conversion mechanism taking them to another site or any other kind of promotion. So if it is a coupon, I suppose, but you still have to do a screen grab of it, which is somewhat difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only two ways that a brand could operate. One is just a coupon or coupon code by taking a picture of it and then sending that either to your audience, or what Taco Bell has done a little bit is just send them to one-off users and just to try to get engagement that way. Obviously, that can work if it gets pressed, but it's incredibly labor intensive if you literally have to send one coupon to every single one of your individual followers, which the ROI on that, especially for Taco Bell, is not going to be too high.
Yeah, I think the other hard part for a marketer is how do you actually find these people to communicate with? Because right now there is no advertising vehicle. You can't go into Facebook and say, okay, I'm going to buy ad space so people will find my page and then connect with me in that capacity. So you really almost have to leverage other social mechanisms and other advertising mechanisms just to get people to come back, to be able to connect with you at all, for them to be able to see your message.
Right, and especially if you're trying to reach the group that's no longer on Facebook, using Facebook probably is not a great way to tell, you know what I mean? So to try to get those people.
That's a very good point.
So yeah, it is difficult. Most of the business to consumer, B2C kind of consumer brick and mortar brands are the ones that have been at least getting the most press. So like restaurants, fashion brands, things like that obviously makes sense. But it'll be interesting to see how creative brands can get to actually kind of utilize this platform. Because I mean, there are, if you have customers that are 13 to 25, there's a lot of them on there.
Right.
So if you can develop something that's creative and compelling, and giving them a reason to view some of your stuff, then it might work.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions or you have any additional commentary, please don't hesitate to tweet us at Bozell, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.